Hey everyone, welcome back or welcome to, for the first time, the Badass Confidence Coach podcast. It's your podcast for all things related to mental health and wellness. So today, Tim and I are talking about gaslighting. And that is a term that I hear it all the time now, all the time. Like the word trigger, like, oh my gosh, so many words, trauma. I've heard these terms for decades in my practice and in all the different places I've worked in psychology, and gaslighting was one of them. But now we hear it just in the public and lay people are using it. And I think that it's important to go over it and talk about really what it is. Okay. Because I think that sometimes I hear it, I'm like, I don't know if you're being gaslit.
Are you using that term properly?
Yeah.
Right?
I think that there's a misunderstanding. So I'm just here to do a little bit of psychoeducation about it.
I like it.
Before we get started, please come talk to me. If you want coaching, reach out to me, okay? I want you to feel like you have a place or a person to go to for all those who are listening and those who are watching on YouTube. Sometimes there are people that I know I've watched and listened to in podcasts and have watched on YouTube, and there's just no way to access them. And sometimes it's because they're such a big figure. There's no way they're going to reach back out to me to work with me. I've done that before, but I'm not there. I'm not at that place.
They're probably not even the person that's monitoring that account.
Yeah, exactly. It's their team.
Yeah.
And I have a small team too, but I'm not at that place yet. So I could certainly have a conversation with you and talk to you about what it is that you need. And if it's coaching, if you're fit for me and I'm a fit for you, we can do that no matter where you are in the world. And if you want therapy, I could do that if you're in the state of Illinois. So, don't hesitate. Okay. I know many times we sit on the fence and we don't make a decision. We have this analysis paralysis. And I'm encouraging you to make a decision, take action, to email me or give me a phone call, and let's get the ball rolling. Okay. All right. Gaslighting. Let's get started. So what is it? I'm going to read the definition. I looked it up. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which one person seeks to make another question the reality, their memory, or their perceptions. So anytime you're in an interaction with someone, usually it's an argument or a debate or a conversation, and someone says to you, I didn't say that. You didn't say that. And you're thinking, yes, I did. And you start to question your own reality. You're being gaslit. The thing about this is that the person who's gaslighting you often doesn't know they're gaslighting you because they don't know what gaslighting is. It's a defense mechanism that they employ because they don't know how else to, air quote, fight fairly or fight well. So they'll use that as a tactic to sort of be right or one up you or try to level out the power imbalance. They perceive there's a power imbalance, that they're losing their power. And so what they'll do is they'll gaslight you in order to balance out the power or to take over power. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Why are you laughing?
Because we're going to talk about you.
Of course
and
we
you're
are.
Gaslighting.
Of course we are.
I told Tim this morning that we were having this conversation today, and he's like, great. I go, oh, I'm going to use you as an example today. And you're like, great. You got defensive even this morning talking about this. That I was going to use you as an example in this gaslighting episode.
Let's quantify my rebuttal this morning. So my rebuttal was that there are some things that are perceived as gaslighting, and I don't know that they always are. And I'm sure that's going to come out in this conversation.
Well, you're gaslighting me right now.
I am?
Kind of.
How is that exactly?
Okay, we'll get into it.
Yeah, okay.
It's already starting, the defensiveness.
No defensiveness.
We come from very different places, as many of you probably know by listening to us. I'm from the field of mental health and psychology, and you're not. But it's also, more than that, it's the way that we were both raised. And you were raised, and you could talk about that. You were raised very differently than me. And I saw fighting well. And I also learned about it in undergrad and in graduate school. I took a class my junior, senior year of college. I went to University of Dayton. It's a Catholic school. And you had to take either philosophy or religion. I think you had to take 9 credit hours, which is like 3 classes. And I don't know, maybe it was more than that. But you had to take, so I took a lot of philosophy. The one religion class I took was called Christian Marriage. And it was taught by a priest a well-known elderly priest at UD who was known for marrying all these couples that went to school together at Dayton. And so when you're getting married in the Catholic Church, you have to take pre-Cana classes. So you have to take marriage prep a course, either a one day, like a day long retreat, or you have to go to like 6 months or 6 sessions with the priest who's going to marry you. And he did that. So he'd been doing that at the time that I was in his class. He probably had been doing it a minimum of 20, 25 years. And this class, Christian Marriage, everybody knew about it. It sold out. You had to the second that what is it, the next semester's classes opened up. Back in those days, I think you went to the office to turn in your registration. There was no, we didn't have the online stuff. And you'd get in line to turn in your schedule that you had already planned out. And I had Christian Marriage on there, and I made sure that I was there right at 8 a.m. or a little before 8 a.m. when the doors opened to get that class, because it was such a sought after class. And it was a phenomenal course in that he talked a lot about how to fight fair. And I learned that. And I still use those lessons when I work with not so much couples, because I don't do as much couples therapy anymore, but with my individual clients, I use it all the time. I use it when I give talks. I use it when I talk with corporations and companies and teams about how to fight fair. I use it everywhere
Yeah.
in my professional life. And you didn't learn that though.
True. Super true. It's interesting. I don't dwell on this. I haven't probably thought about it quite honestly ever. But if we start talking about like family of origin in terms of your mental state,
Right.
there were many, many instances as I start to drill down inside my head of times where things were just swept under the rug. Like
Right.
the problems weren't addressed. Certainly there was a lot of talk behind people's backs. When somebody left the room, there'd be all kinds of willing participants in a conversation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But there was never, I won't say never, it was a rare day that you would find where that would actually be addressed in real time, if ever, to be quite honest. Some of the stuff just was allowed to linger. It just lingered on from year to year and decade to decade.
I see it. I
Yeah.
see it now with your side of the family.
Yeah.
They have a hard time doing conflict resolution. They have a hard time talking about issues with each other. There's a lot, and the rare times that it does happen, there's fighting, raised voices.
Yeah, it's a different
don't listen to
kind
each
of
other.
attempted resolution.
Well, there's no resolution.
There's
People don't
not.
listen to each
It's
other.
attempted resolution, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not. There's no such thing as resolve, and so I never watched that. I never participated in good fighting. I never saw good
Yeah.
fighting. I never was privy to the savviness of being able to master that skill set. Those things are not in me ever,
And you didn't.
until recently. But that's because of you. And we've gone through a lot of different things
Right.
where these things have come up, and I've kind of identified things. It's like, oh, I don't have that inside me. I don't have that either. And I don't recognize those things in that way. So it's something where
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, okay, own that. Own the fact that you don't have it, and that it's a liability. You need to fix that.
And you didn't learn this in your first marriage.
No.
You didn't fight well or communicate well in your first marriage. And I felt the effects of it. And many of you who are in second marriages, or you're in relationships, partnerships post divorce, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because it's almost like the ghosts of your past still live in you. And one thing that stood out for me when you and I, more after we got married and we were doing life together with the 5 kids, there's no way we were not going to fight and not have run-ins with each other. There's just no way, with 7 personalities and 5 little kids and extended family members and
Right.
people who were not happy that we were married, not happy, didn't really want me, didn't really want you in the beginning, because many people liked our prior spouses. I mean, there was a lot of judgment, a lot of opinions, and you and I it all was a pile on, I think, for us at times, plus working full-time jobs and all the things in life. And you and I would get into these arguments or fights about things, and you would sort of shut down because you didn't know how to fight with me. You didn't know how to communicate in a fighting way, so to speak. And that's where I would see in the beginning quite a bit of gaslighting. I don't think you knew how to communicate with me.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was definitely, it was trial and error. It was, and mostly error, to be quite honest. On my part, I'm talking about me.
I wasn't perfect either, that's for sure.
Yeah, but just trying to learn like how to do that, and how it's not like it's not like you're having this massive discussion which turns into an argument. It's not a fight, that's a strong word, but like it's a big argument, it's a big discussion or debate about something.
And we had some really big fights. Like, we're not really big yellers at each other.
No.
God, we've had some really big fights.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm not happy to say this, there's sort of rules of couples therapy.
Yeah,
how
but
you're to operate.
hang on one second. So
Okay,
so you have, I didn't know, it wasn't inside me that I was like, oh, this is not going to end. This is going to be like a forever end. Like this is going to be like, it's not going to end. It's not possible to get through this with a positive result at the end. Like it will forever change us. And I was like, no, that's not true.
You never thought that.
Correct. Yeah. So I was like, and I had to learn like, okay,
but it doesn't matter. You still have to, doesn't matter. See, that's the thing, is I think a lot of couples are like, we're going to be married forever. We're going to be in this. Nothing's going to change. But if you don't resolve those issues, it chips away at the relationship. You have no idea what the other person is thinking. You may be thinking this marriage is solid. The other person's like, I don't know if it's so solid because I'm not being seen and I'm not feeling heard.
Yeah.
And you chip away at that relationship, that friendship, that respect.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that I was the one that I was like, ooh, this is not going to end well. Like, this is going to be a massive problem for you and I going forward, to the point where it's like, do you even want to get into this? And, but see, that mindset was from how I watched it go down my entire life. If you don't get into it and you sweep it under the rug or you ignore it, and then the next day you wake up, maybe it's gone. Maybe it's not.
And it's interesting. And I always say this with my clients, we'll laugh about it, because I always say to them, like, never mind the big elephant in your family room that everybody's like stepping over his foot. Never mind really, it's the white elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And I know that to be true in your family. Your family of origin will tiptoe around big issues, but it does come up, and it comes up later, and it can come up in a nasty way.
Well,
it's like people like just stick the knife in your side.
Yeah, it'll come up and it'll be really big because
it's a blow up.
It's been allowed to fester privately or in the basement or whatever for who knows how long. But then when it comes up, it's not as if everybody has forgotten about it. It's just not top of mind for everybody, but everybody in some way, it's got that issue still in the back of their head. And it probably comes to the front of mind sometimes throughout the course of whatever, between that moment and the next moment. But you don't know how much it's coming to front of mind for the other person, and they don't know for you either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it could be a really big deal for somebody, and for somebody else, it's like, it's not all that. But that other person's like, oh, it is all that.
When I have seen that happen, where you have maybe, I think you have felt like you've been forced to push something underneath the rug because the people that you're trying to talk to have not been available to you, and are like, nope, not having this conversation. And then maybe you'll bring it up 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, because it's just so undone and unfinished for you. And then when you do bring it up, they tell you like to shut up, kind of like you're crazy. And what are you talking about? And it's a total like dismissiveness of anything that you think or feel, like the situation. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then you're getting gaslit.
Yeah.
I've watched you get gaslit.
Yeah. They're like, didn't we already talk about this before?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but there was no closure. There was no resolution.
It ended in a fight.
Yeah.
So this is a great example. We're talking about family dynamics. And I think one of the reasons why you and I are so free to talk about this on the podcast is your family doesn't listen to the podcast, and we know it.
I'm sure there's going to be,
they don't listen.
There'll be one person in my family that will listen to this, and they'll be like, you're going to need to listen to this. Right? Like,
well, you know what? No, I think that might be a good thing.
Well, maybe
I think that'd be a good thing. I know they don't like the name of badass in my name. They don't like the name badass and badass confidence coach.
Yeah.
Certain folks. Heard that
certain folks, right?
The gossip lines.
Yeah.
And I don't think they listen to the podcast because they're not psychologically minded people. They don't really care about mental health so much. So there you go. I mean, this is my whole life, and it's all that I am. And it's so much of who we are as a couple, and now who you are. And we have family members who mental health is not really a thing still. And we're in 2024. It's more, I don't want to stereotype, and I don't want to paint a broad brush, but even with you and I being the way we are and the way we've raised our kids to be psychologically minded, some are more than others, but our extended family members, I think there's a lot of religion that's still there for them, and they still feel like you should go to your pastor and talk about your problems at your church, and very old school. Like that was my grandmother's generation was that way, and a little bit of my mom and dad, but my parents were born in their 30s and my grandmother was born in the 1890s. But there's still a little bit of that on your side of the family.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
here's the part I have difficulty with that whole concept. So we understand, I understand now that getting through those difficult times is necessary, because with the breakdown comes knowledge, comes growth, and creates forward movement
Right.
in life. So on the other side of the fence, you've got this whole viewpoint that's so brought and encircled by religion, which you would think would completely embrace the concept of getting things right and
Yeah.
moving things forward. But yet it doesn't.
I think that, yeah, I know. We're going a little bit on a tangent because that we could have another conversation about that. You all who are watching and you who are listening, it's like just come on around the fire. Let's sit down, grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and let's just sit and talk. I mean, we could do this for hours talking about all these topics that so many of us go through. And we're talking about the details and the nuances of our lives. But I know that many of you it does resonate for you. And if it doesn't, it's very interesting, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that more on your side of the family and the religion within which you were raised. So you were raised evangelical. You're not evangelical now, but you were raised that way.
Mhm.
And I remember when you were going through your first divorce, the only accepted therapy was with a Christian therapist,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So you didn't go to see a air quote secular person because they would maybe take you away from Jesus or God or something,
I think that's
right? Or they didn't know the rules. They didn't know the rules of being an evangelical Christian or a
yeah.
conservative Christian. And there was a secular therapist was a threat to that world.
I mean, I think that's true. I don't think anybody actually said that out loud. I think that
Yeah.
it just, for whatever reason, the church, when I say church, it's the church, not my actual physical church, but the church,
Right.
that Christian evangelical free church sect of religion
Right.
was so focused on people going, if they needed counseling, you started with one of the associate pastors of that church. Like not every, but most every church would have one of the pastors on staff. There might be two or three or whatever, but one of them had a background in counseling. Now,
They did. Okay, that's what my question was. I always wondered because I know of this now.
but what does that mean?
That's exactly what I would say
Yes.
to you. Or what exactly is their credentialing? I mean, they have a background in counseling. Do they have a master's in counseling? Because I can't even I can count I couldn't even really counsel with a bachelor's degree. You could do like social service. Well, I did counsel with supervision, but I couldn't counsel people in a church. You have to have I would think you'd have to have a master's degree, but I don't think those pastors do.
I don't think they do, and we can fact check this certainly. But
fact check it.
my thing was always
Or
like,
someone will fact check it for us.
well, that's
email me.
fine. They'd send it. Yeah, but
because I would be curious to know that.
I would be curious. My thought of it, and I could be completely wrong, is that so you have this associate pastor who has the gift of compassion, has the gift
Yes.
of empathy, has the gift of being able to direct maybe some deep thought conversations and bring folks together. And that maybe is what defined counseling or counseling pastor in that
They weren't
particular
taught the
church.
skills in how to actually counsel couples.
Correct.
It usually was couples or individuals, but they didn't have the skills. They
Yeah.
didn't have the knowledge and the supervision that talk about 10,000 hours. You know, how many hours do
Yeah.
you have to have?
And their intention was good, right? Like their
Right, of
intention was
course.
resolution in some fashion, but I don't think, like you just said, like I don't think they brought the knowledge of the skill set of how to actually process through that to the table. I don't believe that's true. I will definitely look into it because I'm kind of curious myself now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is the case.
Yeah, because I would ask you, and I wondered to myself, and I only went to one kind of support group thing at one of your family members' churches many, many years ago, and I knew more. I kind of like spoke up a couple times. It was driving me crazy because used to run groups, and I had to like bite my tongue to not say anything because I'm like, come on, dude. Like, you've got all these people, all vulnerable people sitting in a circle in this room. I mean, use your skills.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. But it could have just been that one individual. So
Maybe. Yeah.
can't judge from that. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of gaslighting that goes on in churches too, and in religions, where you think or feel something and then you're told that's not true, that's not the way it was, and it
Yeah.
really makes you, anytime you second guess or you have self-doubts, a little bit of gaslighting.
Yeah. I mean,
So
even when I was going through the process of conversion, I mean, I was like, there were things that I was told that were like pulled back. Like when I actually asked a follow-up question, no, it's not that. I didn't say that exactly.
yeah,
Like, and I was like, wait, what? So all that did was just create
we
confusion for
call it
me.
a mind screw, mind
Yeah.
f. I won't say the word, but
Yeah.
as I love my teenage clients when I used to work in psych would always say, "That's a mind fuck." I just said it. It's
Nice.
true. It's true. I'm like, wow, that was like, it's such a great way to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the teenagers, they're the ones who so great. They would just call it out,
Yeah.
all the effed up stuff that was going on in their families and in group in each other's families. And I love the realness of it. You know?
Well, sometimes you have to be real that
Yeah.
way, right? To
Yeah.
get someone's attention. They're like, oh, okay. That's what we're saying.
Yeah. All right, let's go on. So, okay, gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation. The goal of gaslighting is to undermine the person's confidence in their understanding of the world, making them doubt their thoughts, feelings, and even their sanity. And that's exactly what we've been talking about. So I'm going to just very quickly tell you where the term gaslighting comes from. I knew this, but it's been a long time since I read this, and I think it's interesting. So the phrase gaslighting originated from the 1938 play Gaslight. It was written by Patrick Hamilton. It was later adapted into a film in the 1940s. Most notably, the 1944 film Gaslight, starring Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer. And in the story, the husband manipulates his wife into believing she's losing her mind by making subtle changes in their home, like dimming the gas lights, which is what they had back then. And
Interesting.
yeah, right. And then denying that anything is amiss when she notices it. I mean, talk about, geez. So over time, this term has evolved to describe manipulative behavior in personal, professional, and societal contexts. So societal contexts, I hear a lot today about gaslighting in the political realm because we have an election coming up and everyone's gaslighting each other. We gaslight each other in our personal lives, in our personal and our intimate and our family relationships, and we gaslight each other at work.
It's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality. And that's why for 5 years, I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 conducts relentless testing to set the standard for purity and potency. I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because it's tested for 950 contaminants and banned substances, while the industry standard typically only tests for 10. Taking care of my health shouldn't be complicated, and AG1 simplifies this by covering my nutritional basis and setting myself up for success in just 60 seconds. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Anna. That's drinkag1.com/Anna. Check it out. You will not regret it.
Okay, so how do you know you're being gaslit? Doubting your own reality. If you are like constantly second guessing yourself, memory, your perception of events, pay attention to that. Okay. I don't want you to doubt your own reality. Listen to your reality. If you're doubting it, that's a big red flag for me. Constant apologies. If you find yourself constantly apologizing to someone, for things that you did or you didn't do. You don't believe it was really wrong. You don't really think that you didn't do anything wrong. You don't understand, but you're like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Pay attention to that. If you're feeling confused, disoriented, gaslighting can lead to feelings of confusion where you really feel unsure of yourself or you feel unsure of your reality. Like I said, the teenagers, they said it right 30 years ago. That's a mind F. You have lost your confidence. This, I can't stand this one. Here's the mic. Look at that. Every time I put my hand up, this, if you're watching this on YouTube, the screen shows me with a thumbs up. So it drives me crazy because I never want people to lose their confidence. Gaslighting erodes self-esteem over time. Now you'll see this more in relationships or long-term. You're in a job for a long time and you have this boss who's like doing a number on you, like making your mind sick. And you'll see it in relationships with a husband and a wife, maybe with your parent. And it affects your self-esteem because you really, really doubt a lot of things about yourself because it's a pattern in years of being gaslit by people that you live intimately with. And it can affect your ability to make decisions or even have opinions because you're so used to getting gaslit and told you're wrong. You're crazy. That's not right. That was never said. Okay. And what happens is the person gaslighting you may try to cut you off from others in your world who will validate your experience. So this is the next level manipulation. And you see this in controlling relationships where maybe I'm going to use a very stereotypical boyfriend girlfriend situation where the boyfriend is gaslights the girlfriend all the time because he wants control over her. And what she would do is she'd go back and talk to her parents or talk to her best friends or her coworkers. And they're like, no, that's not true. And they're validating her. And then she'll go back and tell her boyfriend. The boyfriend finds a way to isolate her or have her set up these really rigid boundaries so she doesn't see those family members or those friends very much because he wants
Wow.
control. Yeah.
Is it a question? Is it safe to say there's different levels of gaslighting? Am I safe in assuming that?
Well, I never really thought about it being at different levels until I said this right now. And even I was like, well, isolation is on deeper and a more pathological level of gaslighting. So yeah, there probably are deeper levels.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
mean, if you're in a cult, that's probably even darker, deeper level of gaslighting.
Right.
It's like a mind. I keep thinking of mind screw, but it's like everybody's be of one mind and have no opinions. It's different. And if you, by God, you say something, God forbid you say something, you'll get knocked down mentally and emotionally. That's a manipulation. You're getting gaslit. So I'm sure there's different levels. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there's things that are maybe perceived or received as being gaslit, but I don't know that they always are.
Well, think of it this way. If you've ever had anybody say to you, that never happened, you're imagining things. Or you being too sensitive. Come on. That's gaslighting. That's gaslighting. And I'm not proud to say I probably many years ago I had someone in my life who was very sensitive. I mean, she was a bit histrionic. She was sensitive about everything, but that was her. And I realized it later as the years went by. I mean, that was in my 20s. And I realized it as the decades went by that I think I gaslit her because I would be like, you're so sensitive. Stop being so sensitive. Well, it wasn't right.
Yeah.
She was sensitive, but that was her reality. And I was gaslighting her.
Right.
So, here we are. We're all learning and we're all trying to, hopefully if you're listening to this podcast, you're trying to get education and do some of your own personal development coaching and trying to change. Okay. So what do you do if you're being gaslit? Number one, document your interactions. Keep a journal of events or conversations so you can have something concrete to refer back to if you begin to doubt yourself. I think this is really important. I don't think people do it enough. Write down the situation, journal it. And if you ever have a conversation with that person again, there you go. You got evidence because you documented it. Seek outside support. This is number two. Talk to friends. Okay. The opposite of isolation. If someone's trying to keep you from others, I want you to fight back like crazy to not let that happen. I want you to talk to your friends, talk to your family, get a therapist who can provide validation and perspective on your experience. Okay. Do the opposite. Just take action and talk to family, talk to friends, get yourself a therapist if you don't already have one. Number three, set boundaries. Establish those clear boundaries of the person that's gaslighting you. If you need to, if you can, really limit your interactions with that person. This is a toxic individual in your life at that time. You need to set boundaries. All right. Because I would want you to be around this, not at all. And if you have to be, then very little. Okay. The next one, trust your instincts. Listen to your gut. This is going to help you rebuild your confidence. But if you think that you're crazy, but then you don't think you're crazy, but I think I'm crazy, but I don't think I'm crazy because I think that really happened, you're being gaslit. Listen to your gut. Go back to your first thought. The first thought is, no, I saw that. I did see that. I did say that. You're being gaslit.
Yeah.
All right. And then once again, get professional help. All right. I can't say that enough because this is a situation that if you don't talk about it and you don't get help from someone who really understands what this is all about, it can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to other mental health diagnoses. Okay. A therapist will really help to guide you through, how you regain your sense of reality and self-worth. Because gaslighting takes away your self-worth by making you second guess yourself. It lowers your self-esteem. So we want to get that self-worth back. All right. So go ahead.
I was just going to say that whole like journaling idea, I think for certain situations, that's massive.
Write it down. Write down what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the middle of something that either is or you think could go on for quite a while, like there's going to be multiple times where this thing resurfaces because there's no closure,
Mhm.
and you take the time to write that stuff down, how much of a benefit is that going to be maybe a year later or 2 years or 5, right? Because at the end of the day, it all just turns into story. If no one has anything written down, it's your version of a story. There's mine. There's another person's,
Right.
and it becomes very distorted. And all of a sudden, that gets so watered down, and then nobody really remembers the exact specifics of certain things. And then it's just like, well, and then it's like, it's a free for all after that.
And then you go back and you read your journal entries, and you're like, no, see,
Yeah,
this happened. I'm not crazy.
right.
I did think this way. I did say this. I did feel this way. I'm being gaslit.
Right.
It's such a validation for you. And then if you could share it with, a friend, you could share it with a therapist, you realize, okay, this is what I'm in. And this is not about me. This is about that other person.
Yeah.
I'm correct. This is valid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe you're not. I mean, there might be a thing. Maybe it's a time where you're not actually correct, but at least you'll come to the realization through the course of actions and time that was the case, and you'll have peace with it at the end.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I'm stuck on what you said right now about maybe you're not correct. I don't think that I have to push back on that. I don't think
maybe you're
Yeah.
partially.
It's not about but Tim, it's not about being correct or being incorrect. It's about validating one's experience and one's feeling. So I don't agree with that. You look at it's your journal entry. It's your experience of what happened in this relationship with this woman or this man or this person, this boss of yours. And you go back over the last 4 months and you remember all the things that you went through. That to me, that's your experience and that is valid. And then you see in there, oh yeah, that staff meeting, he did say that to me because I wrote it down and I remembered the way I felt. Now I've got a little bit of hindsight 2020. I'm like, this guy was like totally like making me feel like I was crazy. And he really was trying to make me feel like I was crazy. He was diminishing me and putting me down and acting like I didn't do the work on that project that I know I did.
Yeah.
So that's why I pushed back because if that is the person's experience, they are correct.
Yeah. No, I agree. I hear what you're saying. I also think that there could be things like, and we're going completely wild with this now, but like there could be moments within a conversation or moments within a debate or an argument that goes on for a long time where maybe overall you're 100% correct and you were gaslit and that's that. But you might also see little things along the way where you were mistaken.
Okay, so there's nuance. Is what you're saying. There's always nuance in every situation. So, right. I mean, I'm really speaking for this podcast. I speak in generalities for the most part because each person who's listening, if this resonates for them, they all have experiences that they went through that I may not even be mentioning it on the podcast because I have to speak in generalities. That's what gets people from this podcast become my coaching clients. Then we get into the details of their life and their situation, right?
Sure.
And that's different. I mean, that's a private conversation and that's all about their gaslighting experience, which parts of it I'm not even going to be able to cover, in this episode. So this is a big topic.
Yeah.
So you're talking about nuance and yes.
Yeah.
it's different for each person.
Oh,
It's unique.
100%.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
totally. Totally. I
Okay.
just think if something can give you clarity for yourself, it's like you can learn from it. You know what I mean? You'd be
Right.
like, oh yeah, I did participate in that little segment of this big conversation, and maybe I didn't do or say or behave or
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Okay, so I see what you're saying, because the reason why we're doing this episode today is because we talk about gaslighting all the time. And I hear all the time especially on social media, people saying, I'm being gaslit, you're gaslighting me. And then I'm like, are you? I mean,
right,
even I sometimes like,
right,
I don't know. I think it's so overused.
right.
There are times when I don't know that they're gaslighting you. I think that somebody is telling you something that you don't like to hear.
Sure.
Like, you don't like it and you don't want to own it and you don't want to take responsibility. Maybe everybody has their perspective and everyone's perspective is valid and your truth is your truth. That's why this is why I'm speaking in generalities, because each situation is different. But there are times when I think you might be saying that. It's like, well, I don't know that you're being gaslit. You don't like that you're getting confronted on something that this person experienced with you.
Sure. Sure.
And the person gets defensive and says something back, like, I never said that. I never said that. Like, okay, now you're gaslighting me because you're defensive right now.
Right.
And
right.
that's, you and I have had that experience with each
Totally.
other. You've been very defensive and mad at me.
Yeah.
And you have gaslit me. And I've told you, well, that is true. You were gaslighting me.
Wow.
You were gaslighting me.
Wow.
No, but like,
I know what you're saying.
but there are times too when, like, maybe you're not gaslighting me. I don't know. And I'm not gaslighting you, Anna. You don't want to hear this truth about you.
Right.
You don't want, we're having a come to Jesus meeting right now and it's about you and you don't want to hear it. And if I'm like, you're gaslighting me, I'm trying to manipulate you actually to get out of this uncomfortable position that I'm in.
Right.
And so we have been in this where we both have like, kind of like fighting for, there's a power imbalance and we're both fighting for like to be top dog in a fight. We have done this.
Totally.
So that might be a little bit of what you're saying.
And there's got to be moments where you're like, someone will say, you said this or that. And we both know that didn't actually happen.
Like, no, I didn't.
Like,
well, there are times it has happened. Like, no, I didn't.
There are times that it did. But we all have been in situations where we know it definitely did not. But the person's trying to get an angle on something else. Right. So they're like, well, you said, I don't know if I did say that actually, you know what I mean? Or it was, or if it was their take on what you said, it was their interpretation of what you said.
That's important.
Yeah.
So it's perspective. It's a person's interpretation. You and I say all the time, remember, our feelings are valid.
Feelings are never wrong. I've heard that. I'm going to make a t-shirt. Feelings are never wrong.
It's just how I feel. It's just how we do talk about that all the time.
I'm like, well, and then I always say, what do I always say when you say that? Feelings are never wrong. You're like, feelings are never wrong.
It's just how you feel.
And I'm like, that's true. And you're still wrong.
Yeah. You do. No, you and I have worked very hard.
Absolutely.
How to fight.
Absolutely.
Fight well, and how
Yes, we have.
Try to not gaslight each other.
Yes.
Because what this is about for you and I, when we get heated like this, it's ego. Sometimes with us, it's ego. It's just like, kind of want to win, but I don't think to myself that I want to win this fight. I think to myself, I want to hit the ball out of the park and I want to make a really big point and I want him to understand it and get it. And it is.
AKA win it.
Okay, AKA win it. Yeah, I want to hit a home run. And I think a lot of couples, a lot of people do this.
Yeah.
And I will be the first to admit that's ego. That's ego for me. It's swallowing my pride. It's eating some humble pie. It's saying the mea culpa. Like, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Usually when you and I get in these fights, I'm not all right. I'm not all wrong. You're not all right. You're not all wrong. It's just like almost like laying down our swords and saying like, stop. Stop. Like leave our egos at the front door.
Yeah.
And just show some humility and let it go.
Yeah. And let's quantify this whole thing. I don't want somebody to walk out here thinking that all we do is fight all the time. Like we're talking, this is rare, right? Like you and I we don't like get into fights. Like that's like, does it happen?
We go through
Does
phases.
it happen? Absolutely, it happens. But that's not our go-to.
We
right?
go through phases where we'll fight more, and then we won't fight at all. And then, and then we'll fight more, and then we won't fight at all.
We are no different than anyone else.
No, than anybody else.
Yeah.
But the thing I think about us is that I think ask any of our kids and our kids' friends. We are like so out there as a family. We just talk it all out. So we don't push anything under the rug. We talk things through ad nauseum sometimes, I will admit. But I think it's healthy. I think it's good to do.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't keep stuff on. I will blow up. I mean, I think it's the Italian in me.
well, we
I can't
don't,
not fight
I think what you're
about
trying to say is that we don't leave anything for the next day. Like
yeah. Well,
that's going to
yeah.
get, not every time, but
Yeah.
that's the go.
We try
That's the
not to.
plan,
Yeah, yeah.
is that you want to get through all of it and get to some type of resolution and agreement and closure
Yeah.
on the same exact day. You don't want to go to bed and have to sleep or not sleep on
Okay,
it, right?
and I will say this. I will say this because this is a topic we talked about a lot when I was in my couples therapy classes and on my advanced training. Sometimes you do go to bed mad at each other, and that's okay too. You
True.
never go to bed mad, never go to bed mad. Eh, depends on what it
You
is.
try not
I
to,
mean,
but
try not to.
sometimes you
But you know
do.
what? There are some fights where I need to just get the hell away from you, and I need to go to bed. And there are some fights where you need to get the hell away from me, and we need to just not talk for 24 hours. I need to seriously not see you, and you need to not see my face. But and I'm kind of joking. Well, maybe I'm just half joking because that is also true, And I think that there are times when we do need to, we just need to cool off, and we need to have and that's a whole other topic about how you come back and how you fight again and how you get resolved. But there have been times when you and I have just like been in a fight for like 2 days and we just can't come to resolve. So we just like ignore each other. And it's not good. It's always the healthiest thing, but we have done that. We don't do it so much anymore, but we did that for many years when the kids were young. It was hard
That
for
was a
us.
while back.
It
Yeah.
was hard for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that, so a really good takeaway from that is that you want to come to a point of resolution and closure, because you don't want that, whatever that is, to come back and be part of another disagreement.
Well, that's what happens when we don't resolve fights.
Yes.
We, meaning all of us people, we don't resolve the fights we have and the feelings of bitterness and disappointment and hurt and pain and anger and frustration. And we all stuff it down and we just like, I'm going to stuff it down. You just kind of like sublimating your pain. You just, or you're repressing it. We don't want you to repress, but we do it. What happens is that it comes out in the next fight a week later or 6 weeks later or 6 months or a year later, and it all comes out. And that's what I think you've seen that on your side of the family. I know I've seen it quite a bit in my office, and people have not learned how to, and you're talking about your family of origin. You are one in millions of families who just never learned how to communicate and how to communicate well and how to fight and how to fight well. This is commonplace.
Sure.
And so,
Yeah.
just for everybody out there, I mean, this is really kind of the norm. But when you stuff your feelings down, guarantee, and I tell my clients this all the time, it is following you around. It's your baggage. It's your baggage that you're carrying.
Your pockets are only so deep.
Yeah. And it's going to come out.
Right?
It's all there and it's
There you
not
go.
going anywhere. And you're going to blow up at some point with each other at some point, or you're going to get passive aggressive as all hell. You're going to do something. All right. Because we got to purge out all the stuff that we've been stuffing down inside of us, emotionally speaking. Okay. Let's go into, how to avoid, you went into this a little bit with me earlier, how to avoid gaslighting other people, because there are times when we gaslight people and we don't even know we're doing it. This is a newer term. And then when you hear this, you may think to yourself, oh my gosh, I do that. I guess I gaslight people. Yeah. Like I said, you've gaslit me, and I've gaslit you. I mean, we don't do it anymore for the most part because we know about it, but it is something that we didn't even know what it was and we did it. And that's usually when our ego is involved and we want to win a fight. So how do you avoid gaslighting other people? Number one, acknowledge other people's feelings, acknowledge the person's feelings, validate the emotions and the perceptions of the people who are around you, the person you're in the fight with. Even if you don't fully agree with them, validate their emotions. All right. Number one, if you start with that, you're more than halfway there. Okay. That's giving them space. That's giving them emotional room to breathe. And it's like, oh my gosh, if you could just validate somebody, it's like, okay, I'm feeling heard. Take responsibility for your mistakes. Avoid denying that events did or didn't happen or make them feel as if they're like overreacting. Don't do that. Even if you might think you're overreacting, don't say that to someone. You're overreacting. You're overreacting. You're kind of gaslighting them.
Well, and it's also the last thing they want to hear.
Exactly,
in that
right?
moment.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
wait, what'd you
yeah,
say?
yeah, right. And do your best,
Yeah.
because if you're both emotional and then the person tells you you're overreacting, someone's on the offensive, someone's on the defensive. So just avoid denying that things did or didn't happen. Take accountability for your contribution to the misunderstanding. So this is so important. So ownership, accountability, take it. Even if you're like, okay, this is not all my fault, but I've contributed to this a little bit. Even if it's 10%, you did.
Yeah.
Okay, own that.
Yeah.
And then do not manipulate. Don't twist the facts or intentionally confuse the other person to maintain control to avoid conflict or avoid the conflict. Okay. So avoid manipulation. Don't do what you've been doing. Don't do what you've learned how to do from your own parents. All right. Don't twist the facts and don't intentionally confuse others to maintain control or avoid conflict.
See, to me, like that right there, intentionally confuse others. To me, that is taking this entire thing to a totally different
Yeah,
level.
so maybe there are levels of gaslighting.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a deeper,
That's
sicker level.
dark.
It is dark. It's
That's
pathological.
dark.
It's pathological.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really pathological. And I've seen it in my practice. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, done some family and a couple of sessions where, my God, oh my God, when I was that's another conversation. So you hear about this quite a bit when we talk about narcissistic mother, father, partners. Gaslighting comes up quite a bit, and you'll hear that about that darkness of gaslighting with narcissists. But narcissists are not the only ones, and narcissistic personality is only like 1% of our population. A lot of people are narcissistic. They don't have a personality disorder. So you'll hear about it with narcissistic people. You hear about people who are borderline personality disorders. Gaslighting goes on everywhere with all kinds of people and personalities. But yes, you're absolutely right, Tim. It's dark, and it's a deeper, more pathological state. So avoid manipulating others and communicate openly and honestly. Encourage healthy dialogue and respect the differences in your perspectives. Respect the difference in your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your adult child, your little child, your parent, your coworker, your boss, your subordinate. Respect the difference in their perspective. They have a perspective. It's not yours. Listen to them and respect it. Don't gaslight people because you didn't see it that way, or you didn't hear it that way, or you don't feel that way. It doesn't matter. They did. Let them have it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I like it.
All right.
It's good advice.
Yeah, I've kind of flew through that because we really got going off on a tangent about our families, but I think it's important. And thank you for your vulnerability in talking about your family of origin, because I think that maybe at some level we worry that they'll hear, but I'm not going to hide this. And I think that it makes us real. And I think it's so relatable. And I think these are the stories that people need to hear about.
Yeah. And I think the way you and I got into it today is how we are. I mean, that's how we roll.
You're listening to an episode with the two of us right now, everyone, or you're watching. This is how we are every day. These are the conversations we have on our long dog walks twice a day. These are the conversations we have on the weekends. These are the conversations we have in the car. We're always talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I hope that you can learn from it. And we're just sharing our lived experiences. I'm sharing my lived experience with you, Tim, my personal life, as well as not the details of my clients, because I would never betray and ethically would never do that. Betray confidences, and confidentiality is of the utmost in my practice. But I do share experiences with clients over the 30 years, as I think it may help people because they realize, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. Oh, wow, there are so many other people who are going through what I've been through. And that story is a story that I can relate to. And gaslighting is about experiencing something that can make us feel crazy. And then hearing this tonight, I want you all to know that this goes on all the time. And you can change it, absolutely can change it. You got to work on it though. And you may need help with it because it's hard to sometimes, as individuals, we are subjective. We can't always see ourselves in the situation. But if you're a journaler, maybe if you're doing some of your own self-help work, You can do this on your own. Many people do need the help of a therapist. And I even will coach on this a little bit too. If you need additional help, reach out and get help for this. Okay.
Yeah.
If someone in your life is gaslighting you, or you're doing your own personal development and you want to stop gaslighting others.
Yeah. Because
Really noble work.
I don't think that this is something that it's not a light switch thing where it's just going to change overnight.
Yeah.
You know, this one's definitely on a dimmer, and it's going to take a little while. It's going to take a little bit.
It's going to take a while. I think it can take years because I think they're entrenched patterns of behavior. I think they're entrenched defense mechanisms that many of us were raised with. We saw this in our lives as 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds. We watched it. We watched how our family did and didn't operate, how they operated well or did not operate well. Many of us saw family members who did not operate well. And this is all we know. And we don't know that this is any different because of what like I said earlier.
You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's true.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So I hope this was a helpful episode. Please, please, please take a minute to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast with 5 stars. It really does make all the difference in the world. So after you listen to this, if you could just quickly scroll down on Spotify or on iTunes and just, give us 5 stars and give us 1, 2, or 3 sentences. It really does make a difference to grow this podcast, to get it out to even more of a global audience.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, everyone. Mad love. Until next time.